after it's second, I have a question on one of
I might as well pull it out.
What's your question?
What's that?
I had some questions on item C, the notification of the grant program applications. Okay, pull it out of the consent so we can ask a couple questions about it. or-
You could ask the questions on
Okay.
it, and then we can decide whether to
Okay.
include it.
Okay, I was just wondering, that, I mean, these are awesome grants that you applied for, but you're just applied, we don't know whether we're gonna get them or not.
No, the grant cycle closes on March 15th, and they're a 5% matching grant.
Right, and that's what, because I was kind of adding it up, because these are huge grants. So the cost to us, for my estimate, is gonna be $65,000
Yes, if
On
we
this-
got all the grants.
if you got all the grants,
But we
okay?
also have included in the 2020 budget approval to, or request to purchase a tanker truck, which a tanker truck is one of those. in
Exactly,
there.
the one for 400,000, yes.
So
And then, was the fire engine also in the
that is
budget?
That is not in this year's budget. That was, again, if we write a grant for it, we get approved for it, paying 5% of, what would you say, 60,000?
600,000 for the fire engine.
Right, but $6,000.
$65,000 was for all 5 of the grants, you know.
We'll never get all 5 of the grants.
Okay.
Even if we did, 65,000 is way better than 400,000.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah, it would be 30,000 on the fire engine, but that's what I was just wondering. So this is just an application for all of these grants, and some of them are in the budget, the fire engine was not, though, in the budget, because that was my concern about, they're wonderful grants, but it seems like we've had a lot of new things coming up lately, and we haven't even started the fire stations, and I just wanted to make sure that we were still,
Yes, we did, we wrote a grant last year for the Wellness Fitness Initiative,
yeah, that's a
which
great
is
one.
also in there.
For 40,000.
We were not successful last year, and my intention is to try again.
Okay, thank you. That's, I just wanted to ask some questions
Right, yeah,
about it,
well, that's good.
clarification.
So we have a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Did we get support on that?
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes,
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is soccer fees. Gary, you want to,
Address the board. At the last meeting, you approved the license agreement with Huron Valley Athletic Complex. That's the name under which the entity does business. And that agreement called for the fees that would be applied for field usage for the 2020 calendar year to be proposed by HVAC and approved by the Township Board. For whatever reason, I didn't see their proposal until late last week, and I provided the board with an email on Friday indicating that the matter should be pulled from the consent agenda, and then I try to work through some concerns I have. I was unsuccessful in doing that today in the entirety. So what you've been provided is enough to get us through to April 6th, your next meeting. If you look at the top part of that form, it has the tentative schedule, and there are some events that are on their schedule to occur before April 6th. The games are supposed to start March 28th, and there's a tournament over the April 3rd to 5th weekend. So in the second table, you'll see that only 3 of the fees are in here for approval at this point in time. One is the soccer field rental per game, and the other is a soccer tournament per field per day. So if you were to approve those, it would allow time between now and April 6th to work through the other concerns that I have. And that will be addressed through the HVAC's attorney. The principal for that entity was not available by phone today, so I tried, but struck out.
all right,
so this fee here, like per game for the $40 to $60, is that what the soccer club is paying him? For them to maintain the fields, they have to pay that?
These fees under the agreement for HVAC activities, these fees don't apply to that. These fees apply to use of the fields by entities other than HVAC. And they would be able to charge a rental charge. That's the context of it, but, you
Does
know,
HVAC
sometimes less is better when it comes to words, but
Right.
my main concerns was a little bit more description here for everyone's benefit,
Mhm.
in terms of, you know, somebody that's interested in running one of the soccer fields, you know, if they happen to call here, even though we're gonna refer them to HVAC, we've got some reference as to what the field, you know, usage fees are.
So as an example, what you'd have with this is, if you look at, March 28th through the 4th, or April 3rd through the 5th, so you've got, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, so 3 days, they'd be at $500 per day. Is that how that you'd,
$500 per field per day.
per day,
And-
per field
Wow.
per day?
And from a discussion I had with someone other than the principal for HVAC, it's my understanding that the numbers that we see here are numbers that the people using the fields have already agreed to. But it is township property, and the township board needs to approve fees, and my concern is that they're uniform. And again, I just didn't get on it soon enough to be able to, you know, tie up the loose ends.
Well, we didn't get it until we got it, when we sent it to you is when we got the schedule, so. We only had a few days is what it boiled down to.
Right, we got it just before the agenda went out.
So, all right, well, I'll make a motion to approve the schedule, partial schedule of, fee schedule for the Hickory Ridge Soccer Field, as presented by our attorney.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, announcements. Skywarn training and 2020 siren test calendar is, might want to look at the calendar, I guess. I don't know why it says test calendar, so. There's a volunteer fair Monday, March 16th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Highland Station. That's sponsored by the DDA, and it's looking for people to volunteer to do things in our downtown district and community. Curbside compost pickup begins Friday, April 3rd. The Huron Valley Egg Hunts on Saturday, April 4th at 10 a.m. at Duck Lake Pines Park. The Hazardous Waste Day is Saturday, June 6th, 2020, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Highland Elementary School parking lot. So it's coming back to where it's from the high school back over here. Because they're going to be tearing up the high school with a gas line going through there. So that kind of screws with that. There's still 2 vacancies on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Those interested in serving should inquire at my office, supervisor's office. Okay, so next item is public comment. We got 3 minutes time. Please, anybody that wants to speak, please stand at the podium, give your name, address, and feel free to do so. So anybody have any public comment?
I do, if
All
nobody
right.
in the audience does. I do.
Yes.
Next Monday is, we have a speaker for the garden club. It's Up with Vines with Sue Gruba. So tickets are $5, and it's at the activity center. Doors open at 6:30. Our speaker's at 7 o'clock. So come join us.
Okay, so the next item, anybody else, public comment? Okay, we're up over that. So back in September, the board gave approval to hire an architect to work with the township to on a number of different items, and one of them was to work on the possibility of, or proposals for changing this existing township hall. So we hired Lindhout and Associates, is it?
Yep.
And we have Mike O'Leary, who is our lead guy, lead architect, and also a Highland resident. And what I wanted to do was to I put up on the screen here what Mr. O'Leary has come up with. And let me start with the site plan. So what you're looking at here is the entire block, which includes the activity center, the main town hall, the fire station, garage, septic, or the police station and the fire station. And the first task that we asked of Mike was how can we improve the usability of this building without having to move to another place? I think that there's two sides of the coin. We have property over by the library, but there's been a lot of conversation about how your town hall should really be in your downtown. I think it really adds to the value of what you're trying to get your business people to believe, that you want to be part of the downtown, you should be with it. So we started out with a concept that let's look at what we could do to recapture as much of this building as possible. In other words, what walls would be of value, what would have to be removed. And in this image, you see the grayed out areas. Those would be elements that would be added in terms of square footage to be able to make this a much more workable environment. So let me get the floor plan. So if you would like, Mike, I'll let you go up and kind of point to what we've got going there.
Sure. So as Rick had mentioned, we were tasked with trying to utilize and save as much of the existing building as we can, and then add square footage in order to increase the usability of the building and, of course, give them more space, because you're crammed in here as it is. So the concept for the design started with, let's take a main entrance right at this location. The on-street parking is right out in front here. So the existing wall of the building is basically right in here. So what we created was this bump out, which is the main entrance, and then another bump out over here, which was all depicted on the floor plan, and then also this bump out at the rear of the building. So the way the floor plan lays out is we've got a main entrance, we come into a main lobby area here with some public restrooms on each side as you enter, and then the way the functionality of the building is set up, we've got this all set up as public space here, and then it leads into the auditorium, which will seat approximately 132 guests. And then with that, there's some storage and mechanical space in the rear. So here we have a counter for the public and a counter on this side for the public. And then the building uses are split up into, we've got building and planning over here with a couple of offices, a conference room, support staff, unisex restroom, a small lunch area, and a little bit more mechanical space. And then on the other side here, we have the clerk's office, the treasurer's office, the supervisor's offices, all lined up back over here in a conference room, also with support staff throughout the center here. The general office area with the support staff, we tried to get in as many windows as we could throughout this area to get some natural light in here, and then also within the offices. And then as you go further back in the space, we've got the clerk secured storage, file space, a couple of unisex toilet rooms, and a lunch area. One of the benefits of the plan, the way it laid out, was we could use overflow into this area if you've got a larger meeting plan that needs to accommodate more than 132 people. So some of the other things within the public area is we've got a couple of outbreak areas here where we can either have a impromptu meeting or treat it as a coffee area type thing. And then some waiting area here. The lobby gives the opportunity to have art on display or things that the high school has done or grade schools have done. But it gives a lot of public open area for interaction. So other things that we did as a part of this project was an expansion for the activity center. What we did is add square footage to the rear of the building, which gives the ability to have some more breakout spaces for individual functions. There's 5 total. With that, we enlarged a storage area for chair and table storage, and we've enlarged the kitchen area. And then we've also provided some more restrooms to support whatever activities are taking place within the activity center. So that's basically the layout floor plan for what we're proposing to improve this building. Some of the numbers, the existing square footage of this building is 6,232 square feet. We're looking at the addition of the Township Hall portion to be 5,623 square feet of additional space. And the activity center and the addition is 1,600 square feet.
All right, so what's been interesting is we've been, if you want, you can sit down if you want. We'll just do the picture through now, and
I can talk about some of that too if you like. Right?
sure. And what I think when you guys see this, you'll have the same. I hope you have the same feeling I did, that the pictures speak for themselves. I mean, we tasked Mike to look at this. It's got flat roofs in this building. They're useless. They leak. You're constantly trying to find out how to stop the leaks. They require a certain heat loss in order to not load up with ice and snow, and so you've got it's a negative type of building. So we asked him to, let's put some gables on this building. Let's look at the architecture in the local area and pull some key elements out of that. Our fire department has gone through the similar process and came up with elements that ironically are, and I don't think you even saw the fire department stuff.
I've seen it in the paper.
But so it's very much in keeping. So what we'll do is we'll head that direction here. So this gives you, over here is the activity center. And Mary Pat had asked something about, is there potentially some upstairs storage? You could, but what ends up happening, you've got to have elevators potentially to lift stuff up there. It's not something we're going to throw out the door, but it's something that's got potential. We have a lot more storage space than we had before. There is a garage out in back that we store stuff in, and part of the conversation is to knock that garage down and put that structure on the back of the building, right out the back of this, so that we have that space there for additional storage. So this is looking southwest. Let's see if we can get the rest of them in here. This is looking head on, and I think that's something that I really think is pretty neat, is that Mike, come on back here, used the colors of our logo to incorporate them into the front entranceway. So this is the lower part of the G in the Highland. We got them up there. And the Highland and the word Township are color-coded accordingly. I think that's really cool. And then the combination of using clapboard siding, metal roofing, the gable ends with the support mechanism exposed, I think is really nice. So is there anything you'd like to add to that, from that view?
The other material on there is cultured stone, which represents the lower portion and some of the pillars that you see at the corners of the building. And then we also looked at ways to control sunlight and making the upper portions of the windows in the office areas as a stenciled film on those, and then the lower windows have the more clear tinted window to it. And then we do the opposite in like the lunchroom area, where we would make it an etched glass as opposed to a clear glass. So because the sidewalk is so close to the building, people can't peer through and see what's going on with office staff. And then I put in some light bollards along the sidewalk area just to give more definition and security to the pedestrian walkways in front of the building.
That does a pretty good job of giving an overall view. One of the elements that we can also transfer is the police station at some point in time, or maybe we do it at the same time. We redo the roof on that, put a gable on the flat roof in the back, re-side it so it's the same materials, paint it and treat it with the same elements to tie it all together. So the building in the back here, the little white one, that's the garage I was talking about. One of the elements that's going to happen here is right underneath the pointer is our well. So we're going to have water, and the problem we have around this district is that this is in a plume area from some, like downtown Highland has had I can't tell you how many gas stations in it. So there is some relevant groundwater, it's not water contamination, but ground contamination. So you have to put in special wells that are grouted and the pipes are supposed to be a stainless steel so they don't corrode. So you'd have a $25,000 well that would go in here if we had to replace it. So one of the things we're looking at is doing a joint effort with the school and the gentleman that owns the old lumberyard over here. He's looking at doing a really cool development there, and we'd like to see, he needs water, the school needs water, we need water, so we're looking at trying to work together so we can share costs to do that. The other thing is we may have to have a place to put septic. So that brings up the sewer problem that we don't have. So Beth Corlin and I, our planner, are in the process of looking at multiple ways to see how we can handle that on a localized basis. Pretty much like I started the first time when I was first in office. I was talking about how can we do it in the local downtown to get it started. So we're going to do some communication with the school to see if we can work a thing out with them and the property over here for a term. And that would open up some new avenues that way. So I think that anything else you'd like to say, Mike?
That's a quick question. Would the well have to be done before you start any of the expansion then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what'll happen is we'll have to move out of there. You cannot, this building's too old, it's got too much, I'm sure there's tile under the floor here that's asbestos based. There's ceiling tiles are probably asbestos based on the other end of the building. So during the demolition, first thought was we could kind of move back and forth, but the reality is you shouldn't put any employees through that. So we're hoping that the chief does his job and he gets his new station built. And then we either will occupy that station or occupy the Art Council building for the 2 weeks it'll take to build it.
Wow.
Seems reasonable.
Well, that's what everybody tells you in construction. How long? 2 weeks, right? Yes, Dale.
But when you talked about the well, she asked about the well, you're thinking of getting water from the main over here.
Right.
Not
Yep.
doing the well.
So we do have a community water system.
Yeah, I see.
And we had that brought over 2 years ago. 2 years ago? Yeah. Started a couple years ago. And it's right at the intersection of Ruggles and Milford Road. So it's set up to be able to bring water over this way.
So
So,
the conglomeration you're talking about is with all three entities sharing the cost of, okay, gotcha,
Yep.
gotcha, okay.
so instead of one
Right, right.
individual having to bear that cost, you work together. And I think that's a pretty, that's really interesting when you take the schools, the local government, and the private business and work together to make something happen in the benefit of everybody. So, and right now we've got positive response from the school and positive response from the developer and positive response from the health department. So when you get that many people lined up, you're still just, it's not a done deal, but it's one of those things that it's a lot further along than everybody shaking their heads, going, no, no, no. So,
Probably throw the project out to the whole Highland Station community to see if
Right.
there's any other interest to turn it into a larger water main construction project.
so Mike, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered the basics. It's design of the exterior. Our next step would be to move in and do the interior, start designing some of the finishes, and then, also construction drawings and bidding and all that process.
Right.
So,
So essentially what happened is we put Mike to task, and it's like we didn't quite get the phone down, and he's calling up and or emailing saying, hey, I've got this ready for you, I got that ready for you. And wow, this is awesome. And so we had met Thursday morning, this past Thursday morning, and I felt it was important to bring it and put it on this agenda because I think this is the kind of thing that is pretty inspiring. That I think if you think about how many different things have been through that building, a post office, a library, a town hall, it's and then all the different elements to it, and each has kind of gone off on its own and done its own thing. The library moved out, and the post office has got its own place, and so now it can be a home for the township government and the community center. And then the other element of this is that when somebody says, what about future expansion if you needed to grow some? Well, that's when you start looking at a different activity center, and that would be where you'd probably look at doing something maybe at the other property where the library is, because those are positive structures. I call the township hall, I always say it's kind of like a battery. There's positive and negative terminals. This is the negative terminal. People have to pay their taxes here. They got to get permits here. And as a general rule, it's kind of the, what do we got to have that for? And so if you keep that piece of property over there with nothing but positive operations on it, I think it's better for the community as a whole. And we don't want to turn the whole thing into a asphalt parking lot. You got a beautiful piece of property. Sounds like a good idea to stuff another building in the trees. I don't agree with that. I don't think I don't know if you noticed, but our offices are all on the back wall here, and my office would actually be right where that bathroom is. So windows are not what's important here. And, where we sit as elected officials is not the most critical spot. It's how do we make sure that the people that come in get the right function and get the right, feel comfortable being here, want to come in, and it really more multi-purposes the place. So when Mike showed us this, I was just like, wow, hit every nail on the head. And so I'm very pleased with it, and I just can't tell you how glad I am that you were able to have at it this quick, because it's kind of one of those things where it was a surprise each time. So thank you.
One of the things you didn't mention, one of the things we really motivated us to really start thinking about this is both Chief Chapman and Lieutenant Snyder have talked with us when we're hearing about all these shootings and things, that our building is not in any way secure or well planned for keeping the general public in a contained area, and that was one of the big goals we had.
So by having the central corridor, it allows for drop down on those counters, drop down dividers.
Seal it off.
Yeah. I really don't want to see the day when we have to put up 2 inches of plexiglass or something. That to me is a bad sign. So it makes it even more negative. So, Mike, thank you very much for doing this for us, and we'll be moving forward. We're going to have to get the board engaged now moving forward. So April, we'll talk about what our next steps are and move it from there. I want the board has a sheet here that shows you some numbers, and we might as well put this out to the public for general information. We're not planning on putting this out for a millage. This is going to be paid for with money that's been collected for years. And Mary McDonald, who's not here tonight, made a comment at a meeting a few months ago about how we had been putting money aside for a township hall. And so that money that's been being put aside, it's time to put it to use because it just devalues over time. It costs more and more. So now's a good time to do that, and I think this is a good opportunity. So just to give you some general numbers, there's 2 ways that we're kind of looking at this. One is use what we have and work with foundation walls and floors. That construction cost would estimate it at $2.6 million, but that's not including the activity center. So the addition of the activity center would be another $840,000, so you'd be at $3.5 million. If you did total new construction, you'd be, the new construction didn't include the activity center.
Nope.
That's still separate.
No.
So it'd be 3.1, 3.2 million versus 2.6, and then you'd add in the 841,000, so it'd be 3.9, almost 4 million if you did the activity center. So the activity center allows us to be able to look at those numbers and say, what can we do? Because you can still add on to that at a later point if you needed to, especially with a gable roof, you can redevelop it. It'd be nice to do the whole thing, but what we need to do as a board is to sit down and look at numbers and say, where do you want to be? Personally, my opinion is spend the least amount you can, but do it with the best that you can. You know, I believe in smaller houses with high-end materials. You know, do the right thing, and then you've got the best that you can do. So that's my opinion. Some people might say, well, let's go knock it out of the ground. I know that Scott Green, one of the planning commissioners, had said, well, you should just tear it to the ground. Well, you can see there's a difference. Ironically, tearing it to the ground adds cost, but it has some other potential benefits to it too, because you don't know what ghosts are hidden in here. Pull up the carpet and go, uh-oh.
Exactly.
So there's some things you have to, and it might be that at the last minute you have to make that decision that it just knock it down. So, so that kind of gives you an idea where we're at. We actually have more than enough money in savings to do that. So it's something that we, the 3 of us, the in-house officials, spent quite a bit of time looking at, making sure that before we go step off this path that we weren't trying to do something that was going to be either a boondoggle or going out and asking for more money. So, and I'm a believer that if you're just going to collect it, then you probably shouldn't be charging it. You know, so this is a case where we've been collecting for a lot of years. How do you give it back when it's to who? You know, so many people have come and gone. So we'll give it back in the way of a building that I think a lot of people in the community can be proud of. So, and I'd be proud. I'm hoping I'll be able to be in here. I see my competition back there, but and I hope you'll be proud if you get elected. So, yes.
Question about the total
amount, is that just for the structure itself, or is that for the completed building?
That's completed.
Okay, that's interior design all done, okay.
Yeah, the only difference is we're reusing these chairs and those white fold-up tables. So
No worries.
everybody's sitting at that stuff. No. Yeah, that would be complete, so,
So that would be for Plan A or Plan B.
right.
You know, there's money for
Yep,
either way.
yep.
Yes.
Because like you say, you don't know until you look underneath or above what they have.
Yeah, we've looked at the walls and there's little to no cracking whatsoever, and you got that much black, and that means the foundation's pretty well set. The ground here is very sandy soil. It's very good for, you know, compression. So, but it could be you get in there and just might make more sense to make it go away. But so it's kind of like asking people to rebuild a 100-year-old house or a 200-year-old house. There's always a point where, for the sake of preservation, you can sink yourself. And you can probably replicate it literally and have a better overall building over time. So that's the question, what do you do here? This is certainly not a St. John house. And I would say it's certainly not a piece of construction that anybody would say was much more than, I can bet that there were a lot of people that kind of hand did some things around here that were part of the process. So local bricklayers, that type of thing. But I think this is a great look. I think it fits that kind of the rural look. It has a little bit of, if you want to call it barn, I don't mean we're living in a barn, but I think it has a informalness, but still a great draw to it. So thank you. Appreciate it very much. And lives in our own community. That's the cool part. We've been making a point of using people that live in Highland for everything that we do. So, all right. Next item. New business. This is a introduction for proposed ordinance Z-015. That the zoning map of Highland Township, Oakland County, State of Michigan be changed from R1.5 Single Family Residential District, 1.5 acre minimum, to C3 Low Impact Commercial District for a parcel described as parcel number 11-30-200-024, a vacant 5.29 acre parcel south of M59, submitted by applicant Fagley 2 LLC. So this is just an introduction. There's generally no public comment on this at this time, Gary? Or is there?
You can accept public comment, it's not a public hearing.
Don't know if there's anybody here that's affected by that,
Mr. Fagel's here.
besides Mr. Fagley. Okay, that was a good, quiet response. Okay, so I'll make a motion to introduce proposed ordinance number Z-015.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
Do we have any discussion on it?
Discussion? Any discussion?
Good.
Okay, I vote yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, so Mr. Fagley, that moves to the next step, which would be then adoption.
That's your next meeting.
So April 6th, is that what the date is?
That's it.
6.
I think so.
Okay, next item is our fire department. Didn't know that, did you? What's happened is, as a part of the process of, and this fire department thing is great learning experience for what we're showing you on the screen here, because I think we can streamline a lot of situations. Fire department's completely different. Building for the fire department, a lot more involved in it than building a space like this. So what happened is, our attorney pointed out that there's a potential issue with insurance coverage that relates to the contract with our design build group. So one of the things that you have to look out for, say you haul in a whole bunch of materials and the contractors have machine and equipment over there and somebody comes in and rips it all off. Who pays? Well, it apparently is something that protects us from, am I describing this correctly? I'm assuming.
Right, it's property insurance.
So what happens is you want to make sure that, we want to make sure that we're covered. Now, we could have asked the design build company, which we did ask them, to include that insurance, and it was over $50,000. So we went to, which would be our cost. So we went to MMRMA, which is our builder's risk policy, and they said that they would insure it for $15,200. So when you consider the amount of potential loss that could occur there, and Kevin's back there, he knows what happens probably when somebody walks off with your stuff. I've had the same thing happen to me before. You just don't get it back.
Well, it's more than that too, it's loss of time too. So
Oh, yeah.
the project stops.
Especially if it's special order stuff, that kind of thing. So, I'm gonna make the motion that we, pay our insurance, company MMRMA $15,200 for the additional coverage.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. A vote, please.
Mr. Salvia?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, so the next item, I'd like to make a motion that we go into closed session to discuss confidential attorney-client privileged opinion letter regarding the memorandum of understanding with Levy Indiana Slag Company and American Aggregates of Michigan, Inc. Support on that?
Support?
Moved and supported. All right, vote please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 Yes. So that means we're gonna go into the dome of silence
And include Beth Corwin.
and
Yeah.
include Beth Corwin. Okay, Dale, we can't include you in there, but
That's fine.
hang tight. All right, so you're welcome to sit and wait till we get out, and sometimes we have results, and sometimes we just come out and go whack, and we're done. So, all right, so hang with us. If any of you'd like to look at the design work, you can come up to the table. We got a couple of. Gotta make this quick.
That'd be good.
25 minutes.
What's that?
25 minutes for closed session.
Okay, we're back in session. We have a motion to make, and I'm gonna have the attorney, I'll make the motion, but it's our attorney, we'll read it.
For new business item 10A, consider approval of memorandum of understanding with Levy Indiana Slag Company and American Aggregates of Michigan, Inc. That is the recommended motion, which is to authorize and direct the township attorney to work with the attorney for Levy Indiana Slag Company and American Aggregates of Michigan, Inc. to prepare a consent judgment amendment consistent with the memorandum of understanding for consideration by the board at its April 6, 2020 meeting, after a public hearing at that meeting, limited to the expansion of the mining area to the 82.3 acres vacant Hickory Ridge Road parcel that is assigned tax parcel number 1105376008.
Can we get support on that?
Support.
Okay, it's moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. On that item, meeting adjourned. This is the floor plan as discussed by the architect earlier, and these are renderings of the proposed township hall remodel.